You know, when you said that I started at the Sunday Times of London and that was my first job, what you don't quite realize is that basically I started at Thomson Reuters, because the Sunday Times was owned by Lord Thomson of Fleet, and it was a Thomson company, which then merged with Reuters. And so, like many of you in this room, I have spent since the beginning of my career at what is now Thomson Reuters. And what particularly impresses me about Thomson Reuters now, and they're partners of ours at the Aspen Institute, for which I thank them. They are partners at the Ideas. Thomson Reuters is partners at our Ideas Festival every summer. But what particularly impresses me is the innovation and creativity that Mike talked about that runs throughout Thomson Reuters, and I'm sure is deeply ingrained in the legal part of Thomson Reuters as well. As I often tell people when they say, what are the leadership lessons of Steve Jobs? I say, first of all, this is a biography. It's not a how-to book. You're not supposed to model yourself exactly on Steve Jobs, and I'll get to some of that in a moment. It's about a real person with flesh, made of flesh and blood, who had his strengths, his weaknesses, his flaws. But the main strength he had was a passion for product. I know Thomson Reuters knows this. But any of you in the legal business, whether you look at your clients or know what you do, you realize that you can have a passion for making a great product and service, or you can have a passion for making a great profit. And Steve said, if you have a passion for your products and services, the profits will follow. But if you spend your life with a passion only to make a profit, you're going to cut corners. And his way of doing things was to try, even when it may not make sense in the short-term business sense, to do things that were insanely great, perfect, and that pushed the envelope. The 4 drafts of the Declaration, which I looked at, while I was running CNN. And I remember one night I was going through it and putting through it. Next morning I got to the office. We had our morning meeting, 7 a.m., some ungodly hour at CNN. And the discussion was a crossfire. And somebody said, we have a crossfire for tonight. There's a judge in Alabama who put the 10 Commandments on his courthouse steps, and the federal judge has ordered that be removed. And the local judge won't do it. The marshal's going to remove it. So we are having a crossfire. Who's for the 10 Commandments? Who's against the 10 Commandments? And we go, oh, great, we have a crossfire. And I thought, oh, my God. We in the media, we in politics, using the 10 Commandments to divide us, when I was watching how Ben Franklin, Adams, and Jefferson came together in a balance over the role of religion. It made me think, okay, maybe my time from journalism, at least at CNN, I should retire and go to the Aspen Institute. But it was that type of tolerance that he does, Ben Franklin, throughout his life, that I think made him a different type of leader than Ben Franklin. He did it even the Constitutional Convention. He's the one who does the compromise after the Connecticut Compromise has been voted down to have a House and a Senate. And he tells everybody, line up and sign it. And when they do, some woman comes up at the end and says, what have you wrought in there, Dr. Franklin? He says, a republic, madam, if you can keep it. And the point was that it's up to all of us to work together to find the common ground and keep it. That's a type of leadership lesson that I learned from Franklin that I'll tell people who, when they don't like the way Steve Jobs had that arrogant, pushy leadership style, say you have to learn when to have one, when to have the other, when to bring them together. And even with Einstein, who was not traditionally a leader in the sense that he was a theorist, a thinker, you need that in your profession. You need that in your firms as well, which is the person who brings people together, the person like Steve Jobs who has a passion and drives a product, and a person like Einstein who is a theorist. But for Einstein, his father gave him a compass. And the needle twitched and pointed north. A little compass. You got to say, oh, cool, it points north. And you and I probably remember getting a compass when we're 7 or 8. And we go, well, yeah, look, it points north. And then about a minute and a half later, we're on to, oh, look, a dead squirrel, and we're on to something else. Einstein just couldn't stop trying to figure out, why does it move? Nothing's touching it. There's no physical object touching that piece of metal. What is a force field? What makes him do it? So even at at age 17, he's running, still worrying about it. He's reading Maxwell's equations. And if you look at Maxwell's equations that describe an electromagnetic field, trying to figure out how it works, Or if you're Einstein, you look at him. They say, you know, the electromagnetic wave always has to travel at the speed of light. And Einstein's going, why? You know, if I catch up with it, won't it look stationary next to me? If I'm riding alongside the light wave, but Maxwell's equations don't allow for that. He said, I walked around for days on end with my palms sweating. This caused me such anxiety. Now, I remember what was causing my palms to sweat at age 17 in New Orleans, and it wasn't Maxwell's equations. But this is what I mean. This is this, and all the way through, he's trying to figure out, what if I catch up with that light wave? Finally, he can't get a job. He's just a third-class patent clerk in 1905. But he's looking at devices to synchronize clocks. And he says, well, what if I catch up with the signal, the light signal, the electric signal that goes between two distant clocks? What looks synchronized to a person traveling in this direction won't look synchronized to somebody traveling really fast, like at the speed of light, in that direction. And he comes up with the mental, imaginative, creative, innovatively. He's not the best educated physicist. He's not even in some ways the conventionally smartest, but he thinks out of the box. He says, well, I get it. The speed of light is constant, but time, what's simultaneous? Synchronized clocks, time, is relative, depending on your state of motion. Just a mental leap. That's pure creativity. Well, you had a group of people. You had the theorists, the people like Einstein, the people like Jefferson and Madison who understand great theory, the really smart ones. You have a person of great rectitude, like George Washington, which you need. You have people like Steve Jobs of deep passion, like Samuel Adams and his cousin John Adams. And you have somebody like Ben Franklin, who knows how to bring people together and find the common ground. And so to me, when you're looking at leadership in your firm, your companies, the people you deal with in our government, whatever, it's how do you get the right mix? How do you have, you know, the confidence to have a few Steve Jobses around, but also the humility, or at least the pretense of humility, to be a Ben Franklin too, and make sure you find the common ground. All of them, too, really believed, all three of the people I wrote about, that we're part of something larger than ourselves.